Okay, so here's the situation. We cannot really become successful without being competent. And we can't really be competent without some level of competition. But the good news is, for people like myself who have a hard time with competition and who are, say, shy about getting up in other people's space and who don't really like other people getting up in my space, there are ways to bypass the standard competitive model and still accomplish and achieve competence. So the first time this became something I was giving deep thought to was when I would be on a selection committee for medical school, for residency. I'd be on a selection committee, and they would say things like, this person is a competitive applicant. This person is not a very competitive applicant. And that really struck me, that vocabulary struck me, because I never thought about applicants as being competitive. I just thought of them as good applicants and not so good applicants. But when I then applied that to myself and thought, well, okay, so I got into this or that program, so that must have meant I was a competitive applicant, even though I didn't feel competitive. Like, I didn't have the spirit of competition burning within me. So that's when I started to really think about the connection between competition and competence, specifically how, like we covered in the last episode, how being a mercenary is naturally associated with being competitive and being competent, but that being a mercenary also has considerable downsides, both for the mercenary themselves as well as the people around them. So in healthcare, there is decreasing tolerance and interest for mercenary behavior. Now, medicine is going to have to learn to stand up for itself in general, because overall there's a how can I put it? There's a trend away from being able to just have one skill, establish it once and for all, and then coast for decades on that one skill, say being a surgeon or being an anesthesiologist. There is increasingly a demand that people be entrepreneurial, that people improve their ability to negotiate and to sell and to be creative with how they serve other people. That's good. That's going to force doctors and medicine in general into our growth zone. That means out of our comfort zone. And if our comfort zone is just doing the procedures that we're trained to do, then being outside of our comfort zone is going to mean public speaking, presentation, negotiation, deal making, and all those more human, more soft skills that honestly a lot of doctors are weak in. And speaking both for myself and many others, we got into medicine so that we wouldn't have to develop those skills. But ultimately that is not going to be sustainable. So as AI enters the scene, as economic uncertainty, both domestically and internationally, continues to grow, it becomes more and more important for us to understand from a first principles basis what the origin of competence is. We've all learned a lot of things. We've all learned to walk and talk. We've all learned to listen to different degrees. But much of our learning was done unintentionally. We as learners were often not learning intentionally, and the people, places, and things, the influences that taught us were often teaching unintentionally. So the intentional acquisition of competencies, as well as the intentional assignment or imposition of competencies, is becoming more and more intentional. That is what we can call engineering, so that people don't become lawyers and engineers on accident. They go to specific places, they get exposed to specific challenges, they benefit from specific support, and at the end of some number of months, years, decades, they emerge as a product. The products I'm talking about are lawyers and accountants and engineers and doctors. These are how we productize ourselves, which is something that it's important to come to peace with and to reconcile ourselves to. Philosophically, this has to do with coming to peace with being objects, with being an object in the lives of others, in addition to being the subject that's experiencing our own lives. But keeping it practical, the question is, how valuable are we? Knowing that our value increases with how much we can change someone else's reality. Anytime anyone pays you, anytime anyone wants to have anything to do with you, it's because that to whatever degree you're able to make some dream of theirs come true, or you're able to make some nightmare of theirs go away with reliability, with consistency. To do that, to have confidence in yourself and to be able to make that promise to someone else, to say, hey, listen, come to me and I will access your circulatory system. I will give you medication that's going to keep you safe. I'm going to breathe for you while you're under surgery. That's for me. That's what I do. Or for you to say, come to my office and I will listen to your complaint and tell you whether you have a legal case or not, and all the other things that a lawyer can promise their clientele. At the end of the day, it boils down to the ability to narrow down a world of possibilities into a collection of tighter and tighter probabilities that increasingly align with the desires of the client. And that is fundamentally what a competence is. And that's what competition both tests and trains. For a person to be able to get a basketball in a hoop past all these defenders requires tremendous competence that is both tested and trained through competition. That is the funneling of outcomes, because there's a million places the ball could be, a million trajectories or arcs the ball could take, but a professional ball player is consistently making contact with the baseball, draining free throws. Just remember that physical competencies are not the only ones that we can develop. We can develop physical competencies, emotional competencies, mental competencies, financial competencies, social competencies, and moral competencies, which means that these 6 domains in life, the physical, emotional, mental, financial, social, and moral domains, are all vulnerable to our manipulation. We can actually move emotions, we can move thoughts, we can move money, we can move people, and we can move moral conditions such that they fit our preferences and the preferences of the people we care about, the people who employ us, and the people we live with. So that's really what success is all about. That's really what competence is all about. And I hope you enjoy listening to these presentations as much as I enjoy making them. Hope you have a great day.